pick that up again?
Well, I tell you, In Search of was a pleasant surprise to me. Again, I thought maybe 2 or 3 seasons would be the stretch of the show. We did 7 years, and we did 144 episodes, and I think it became sort of the model and the granddaddy of a lot of the reality-based searching shows that are on the air now. In fact, for the last couple of years, I've been narrating a show called Ancient Mysteries, which has its own similarities to In Search of. I haven't heard any word about In Search of being resurrected, but it's not a bad idea.
All right. It was Alan Keyes, a presidential candidate in the last election, who said, Star Trek in many ways more personifies the spirit of what NASA used to be than does the current NASA. Would you agree with that?
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I think it's true, but I think just this last week that we've been seeing a revival of interest in NASA. I think they've had an enormous success with the rover on Mars, and I think that they have gotten out of their kind of bureaucratic bind and gotten into an adventurous spirit that's captured the imagination again. And if that's true, and if they can keep that kind of sense of adventure going, I think that they might build on it successfully. There's still a tremendous interest, I think, in what's out there, and I think NASA is the organization that's best set up to do the exploring.
Building greater interest than ever in what's out there. More UFO reports, lights over Phoenix recently, the celebration of Roswell, the rest of it. What about moving into the realm of reality? How much chance do you think there really is that we will be contacted? I mean, there is so much media.
Yeah.
It's almost as though we are being prepared.
Yeah. You know, when we were making the Star Trek series, the first season, middle of the first season, some people came to me, and they said, you may not know it, but you have been chosen as a kind of a vessel to carry information to this civilization to help prepare this society for the coming of another civilization, for alien arrival. And your character is a character designed to educate this public that there's nothing to fear, that it's possible to interact with other species. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, it's okay with me if that's the case. And yes, it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. I guess there's something in me that responds to it as well. That's why I hooked up with John Delancey and several other Star Trek actors and actresses, and we call ourselves Alien Voices. This group that's doing these audio tapes, the Journey to the Center of the Earth and the Time Machine and Lost World, and I guess we're kind of touched by that idea. We're tickled by that idea. Our imaginations are awakened, aroused by that idea. I'm curious. I'm very curious. The Carl Sagan movie that just opened, the movie based on Carl Sagan's book Contact just opened.
Right.
It's a flawed movie, but I think one of the most important moments in the movie is when Jodie Foster tells us the numbers. There are something like 4 billion stars in our galaxy alone, and there are billions of other galaxies. Each of those stars are potential suns just like ours, and that means that if one out of every million of those stars has planets around it, and if one out of every million of those has some kind of life on it, then the numbers tell us that the chances are very, very great that there is life out there someplace. But
the distances are immense, and the technology involved to get here would dictate they would be far, far ahead of us.
Well, not necessarily. They might be far ahead of us. They might be parallel to us. We don't know that for sure. But you're right. The chances are they're far ahead of us, yeah.
So a good question is whether you think that beings, not just humans, evolve toward or away from violence. An important question if we're going to meet up with somebody.
Yeah, well, that's always the question. How did they, the first thing that we would like to know is how did you folks get through the technological phase of your civilization and survive? How did you survive all the discoveries of atomic weaponry and atomic power and that kind of thing without killing each other.
Yes.
And the assumption is that we'll be able to ask those questions and they'll educate us and help us get through it. It won't necessarily work that way. They may not. It may take an enormous amount of time just for us to learn how to communicate with them, let alone to get information from them. The assumption always is that they have traveled the same path that we are traveling, and that they may be 100 or 1,000 years ahead of us, but that they have gone through exactly the same experience, and chances are that's not necessarily true.
Well, recalling the prime directive, if you look at what we have done here on Earth, reality, when we have met people who have been isolated from the world until one sudden day when they're found in the middle of a jungle somewhere, we destroy them.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So, I don't know. Listen, on a lighter note, you did some music stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, I have dabbled with music in my time. Where are you going with this?
Well, I just wanted to ask whether there's more. There's more coming. Not too many people know that you dabbled with music, do they?
Well, music has always been a love of mine, and when we were doing the Star Trek series, I had the opportunity to do some recording, which I did. I think I must have done about 6 albums. I also did a lot of musical theater. I toured the country in various musical shows in the 70s. I did Fiddler on the Roof, My Fair Lady, King and I, Camelot. Had a great time. I loved doing it.
And then a question I asked you just before the program, the one I did ask you is, how do you get a life? I mean, you're so busy, so many demands on your time, and I'm one of them right now. How do you make time for a life?
Well, first let me say this. When I came to California, I was 18 years old. I left Boston, came to California to be an actor. For the first 15 years that I spent working at building a career, I was always wanting more opportunity. I was always struggling to get more work. When it all came together for me, and Star Trek started, and I haven't been out of work since, and then particularly when I had a couple of hits directing movies, and all of that came together, suddenly you're right. What happens to you, as you know, is that there's a tremendous amount of pressure builds up to do this, do that, and people would be happy to keep you busy 24 hours a day.
That's right.
I don't resent it because of the time that I spent wanting more and needing more and knowing what it's like being out of work.
So you just make rules.
Yeah, exactly. I try to keep a level head about it, and I try to help people to understand that a man does not live by work alone.
That's it. Leonard, that's it. In more ways than one, that's a half an hour.
Really?
Yeah, that's a half an hour.
Oh, too fast.
Too fast is right. So can we do this again sometime?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Leonard Nimoy, thanks a million. I wish I had hours. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, that's Leonard Nimoy.
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time, on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from July 22nd, 1997.